All right, today we are jumping headfirst into a pivotal year in one of history's deadliest conflicts, the Taiping Rebellion. And we're going to see it all through the eyes of two men on opposite sides of a brutal war. So meet our two main players. The year is 1860. On one hand, you've got Guanji, a young officer hungry for revenge and a chance to prove his worth. On the other, there's General Li Shusheng, a master strategist for the Taiping rebels. Their paths are about to cross in the fight for two of China's most critical cities. Here's the roadmap for today. We're going to follow their stories from a desperate siege and a brilliant bluff, all the way to a shocking betrayal that pretty much changes everything. Okay, let's set the stage. By 1860, the Taiping Rebellion had been tearing China apart for a decade. Imagine a massive, quasi-Christian revolutionary movement, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, trying to bring down the entire imperial system. And fighting them is the ruling Qing dynasty, already shaky from corruption and other wars. We're talking about a conflict that would eventually kill tens of millions of people. It's just staggering. So let's zoom in. It's March, and we're inside the walls of Hangzhou. The city is under siege, and our young officer Guanji is about to get thrown into the fire. Now, Guanji has a personal score to settle. The Taiping killed his family, but his commander, a tough-as-nails Mongolian they call Genghis, is not impressed. You can just feel the disdain in that quote, right? He sees Guanji as some soft, educated kid, not a real soldier. And inside the city, it is pure chaos. The official army units have basically folded. It's fallen to the regular townspeople to fight for their lives. We're talking about desperate, bloody street fights with whatever weapons they can find, like kitchen knives. Genghis is not about to waste his best soldiers, his riflemen, in that kind of meat grinder. So he gives Guanji this incredibly risky, almost suicidal mission. He says, take 50 men, go into that anthill, set up a kill zone, and see what the enemy throws at you. And incredibly, it works. Guanji's men are disciplined. They set the trap, unleash devastating volley fire, and take out more than 20 rebels before pulling back. It's a success, but Guanji gets wounded in the arm during the retreat. But the fight isn't over. Back at their base, Guanji faces a totally different kind of test. Genghis heats his dagger in a flame and presses it right into Guanji's wound to cauterize it. No anesthetic, nothing. Just a brutal lesson in bearing a soldier's pain. Okay, so while all that intense life-or-death drama is unfolding on one city block, let's pull the camera way, way back. Because the Taiping general, Li, he isn't playing checkers. He's playing chess with entire armies. And here's the brilliant part. The entire bloody siege of Hangzhou, all that fighting and dying that Guanji is a part of, it's a trick. A massive feint. It's a classic strategy. Make a lot of noise over here to draw the tiger, the main Qing army, away from the place you really want to hit. So, back in Hangzhou, Genghis has this gut feeling that something's not right, but he can't prove it. The city's leaders are frozen, they don't know what to do, and that's when Guanji, fresh off his wound, volunteers for another crazy mission. Go behind enemy lines and find out what's really going on. He goes deep undercover, throws on a rebel uniform, messes up his hair. A local woman whose husband was also killed by the Taiping acts as his guide, and what he finds is shocking. The main Taiping army is gone. They left just a tiny force behind with tons of flags and campfires to make it look like the siege was still on. But just when he thinks he's home free, his mission takes a sharp, deadly turn. He gets cornered by a veteran Taiping officer who sees right through his disguise. And suddenly, Guanji is faced with that exact moment of truth his commander was talking about. This isn't a drill. The rebel is a seasoned killer, a street fighter. Guanji, for all his training, is completely out of his league. He's about to die. And then, out of nowhere, his guide, the Manchu woman, she rushes in. She shoves a burning torch in the officer's face. It's just enough of a distraction. It gives Guanji the one split second he needs to make his move and win the fight. Just an unbelievable act of civilian courage in the middle of all this chaos. All right, let's switch gears. Months have passed, and General Li's master plan? It worked perfectly. He lured the Qing army away from his capital, Nanjing, and then he crushed them. Now, he marches his victorious army on the biggest prize of all, the incredibly wealthy port city of Shanghai. He's expecting to be welcomed as a hero. You've got to understand Li's mindset here. The Taiping had their own version of Christianity. The British were also fighting the Qing emperor. He sent messages ahead promising to protect all the foreign merchants. In his mind, they were natural allies. They had a common enemy. He could not have been more wrong. As his army proudly marched towards the city walls, the first shots weren't fired by the Qing. Instead, modern British cannons opened up. They fired grape shot, which is basically like turning a cannon into a giant shotgun. It just tore horrific holes in the Taiping ranks. It was a shocking, complete, and utterly devastating betrayal.
It was an absolute slaughter. Li's army, which had been on the verge of total victory, was routed. His dream of creating a modern Taiping navy and winning the war quickly was shattered. To make it even more tragic, his best friend and top commander, who he'd brought along to witness the triumph, died in his arms.
So what on earth just happened? Why the betrayal? Well, this moment just rips the cover off the brutal realities of this war. For the Western powers, especially the British, this was never about religion or ideals. It was about money. Cold, hard cash. A weak and corrupt Qing government that they could push around and control was way better for business, especially the opium trade, than a strong, unpredictable, revolutionary government. So in the end, you have these two men. Guanji survived his personal test of courage, only to watch his own, supposedly loyal army loot the very city it was supposed to protect. And General Li, the brilliant strategist, was beaten not by a better general, but by the cynical math of international trade. It really makes you wonder, in a war this complicated, who can you even call the real enemy?